most elegant, dexterous, and simply amazing robots ever built, including the humanoid robot Atlas and the robot dog Spot, one or both of whom you've probably seen on the internet either dancing, doing backflips, opening doors, or throwing around heavy objects. Robert has led both the development of Boston Dynamics humanoid robots and their physics-based simulation software. He has been with the company from the very beginning, including its roots at MIT, where he received his PhD in aeronautical engineering. This was in 1994 at the legendary MIT Leg Lab. He wrote his PhD thesis on robot gymnastics, as part of which he programmed a bipedal robot to do the world's first 3D robotic somersault. Robert is a great engineer, roboticist, and leader, and Boston Dynamics, to me, as a roboticist, is a truly inspiring company. This conversation was a big honor and pleasure, and I hope to do a lot of great work with these robots in the years to come. This is the Lex Friedman Podcast. To support it, please check out our sponsors in the description. And now, dear friends, here's Robert Plater. When did you first fall in love with robotics? Let's start with love and robots.
Well, love is relevant because I think the fascination, the deep fascination, is really about movement. And I was visiting MIT looking for a place to get a PhD, and I wanted to do some laboratory work. And one of my professors in the aero department said, "Go see this guy, Mark Rabert, down in the basement of the AI lab." And so I walked down there and saw him. He showed me his robots, and he showed me this robot doing a somersault. And I just immediately went, whoa,
Yeah.
robots can do that. And because of my own interest in gymnastics, there was like this immediate connection. And, I was I was in an aeroastro degree because, flight and movement was all so fascinating to me. And then it turned out that, robotics had this big challenge. How do you balance? How do you build a legged robot that can really get around? And that was a fascination. And it still exists today. We're still working on perfecting motion in robots.
What about the elegance and the beauty of the movement itself? Is there something maybe grounded in your appreciation of movement from your gymnastics days? Was there something you just fundamentally appreciate about the elegance and beauty of movement?
We had this concept in gymnastics of letting your body do what it wanted to do. When you get really good at gymnastics, part of what you're doing is putting your body into a position where the physics and the body's inertia and momentum will kind of push you in the right direction in a very natural and organic way. And the thing that Mark was doing, in the basement of that laboratory, was trying to figure out how to build machines to take advantage of those ideas. How do you build something so that the physics of the machine just kind of inherently wants to do what it wants to do? And he was building these springy pogo stick type. His first cut at legged locomotion was a pogo stick where it's bouncing and there's a spring mass system that's oscillating, has its own sort of natural frequency there, and sort of figuring out how to augment those natural physics with also intent. How do you then control that, but not overpower it? It's that coordination that I think creates real potential. We could call it beauty. You could call it, I don't know, synergy. That people have different words for it. But I think that was inherent from the beginning. That was clear to me that's part of what Mark was trying to do. He asked me to do that in my research work. So, that's where it got going.
So part of the thing that I think I'm calling elegance and beauty in this case, which was there, even with the pogo stick, is maybe the efficiency. So letting the body do what it wants to do, trying to discover the efficient movement.
It's definitely more efficient. It also becomes easier to control in its own way because the physics are solving some of the problem itself. It's not like you have to do all this calculation and overpower the physics. The physics naturally, inherently want to do the right thing. There can even be, feedback mechanisms, stabilizing mechanisms that occur simply by virtue of the physics of the body. And it's, not all not all in the computer or not even all in your mind as a person. And there's something interesting in that melding.
You were with Mark for many, many, many years, but you were there in this kind of legendary space of Leg Lab and MIT in the basement. All great things happen in the basement. Is there some memories? Is there some memories from that time that you have? Because it's such cutting edge work in robotics and artificial intelligence.
The memories, the distinctive lessons, I would say, I learned in that time period, and that I think Mark was a great teacher of, was it's okay to pursue your interests, your curiosity, do something because you love it. You'll do it a lot better if you love it.
Mhm.
Um, that is a lasting lesson that I think we apply at the company still, um, and really is a core value.
So the interesting thing is, I got to with people like Ross Tedrick and others, like the students that work at those robotics labs are like some of the happiest people I've ever met. I don't know what that is. I meet a lot of PhD students. A lot of them are kind of broken by the wear and tear of the process. But roboticists are, while they work extremely hard and work long hours, there's there's a happiness there. The only other group of people I met like that are people that skydive a lot. Like for some reason, there's a deep, fulfilling happiness. Maybe from like a long period of struggle to get a thing to work, and it works, and there's a magic to it. I don't know exactly because it's so fundamentally hands-on, and you're bringing a thing to life. I don't know what it is, but they're happy.
We see, our attrition at the company is really low. People come and they love the pursuit. And I think part of that is that there's perhaps a natural connection to it. It's a little bit easier to connect when you have a robot that's moving around in the world, and part of your goal is to make it move around in the world. You can identify with that. And this is one of the unique things about the kinds of robots we're building is this physical interaction lets you perhaps identify with it. So I think that is a source of happiness. I don't think it's unique to robotics. I think anybody also who is just pursuing something they love, it's easier to work hard at it and be good at it. And it, not everybody gets to find that. I do feel lucky in that way, and I think we're lucky as an organization that we've been able to build a business around this and that keeps people engaged.
So, if it's all right, let's linger on Mark for a little bit longer. Mark Rabert. So he's a legend. He's a legendary engineer and roboticist. What have you learned about life, about robotics from Mark through all the many years you worked with him?
I think the most important lesson, which was, have the courage of your convictions and do what you think is interesting. Um, be willing to try to find big problems to go after.
Mhm.
And at the time, legged locomotion, um, especially in a dynamic machine, nobody had solved it. And that felt like a multi-decade problem to go after. And so, have the courage to go after that because you're interested. Don't worry if it's going to make money. That's been a theme. So that's really probably the most important lesson I think that I got from Mark.
How crazy is the effort of doing legged robotics at that time, especially?
Mark got some stuff to work, starting from simple ideas. So maybe another important idea that has really become a value of the company is try to simplify a thing to the core essence. And while Mark was showing videos of animals running across the savannah or uh, climbing mountains, what he started with was a pogo stick because he was trying to reduce the problem to something that was manageable, and getting the pogo stick to balance had in it the fundamental problems that if we solved those, you could eventually extrapolate to something that galloped like a horse. And so look for those simplifying principles.
How tough is the job of simplifying a robot?
So I'd say in the early days, the thing that made the researchers at Boston Dynamics special is that we worked on figuring out what that that central principle was,
Mhm.
and then building software or machines around that principle. And that was not easy in the early days. And it took real expertise in understanding the dynamics of motion and feedback control principles, how to build an with the computers at the time, how to build a feedback control algorithm that was simple enough that it could run in real time at 1,000 hertz and actually get that machine to work. Um, and that was not something everybody was doing, at that time. Now the world's changing now, and I think the approaches to controlling robots are going to change, but and they're going to become more broadly um, available.